Hi, and welcome back to Beans and Bezels. I recently introduced this brand in my review of their latest dress watch, the Vandaag Primus. Today I'll be looking at their debut watch, a pilot's chronograph that they launched earlier this year, called the Schallmauer, which I believe translates to sound barrier. This watch has clearly been inspired by the many beautiful pilot watches of the past and has a lot of design cues from German pilot chronograph watches too. They've managed to do this while also creating their own minimalist identity for the Schallmauer. This watch is currently only offered with the quartz movement and costs roughly $350. These watches are assembled in Germany by their watchmaker, and I think they've done a stellar job on this debut piece. I believe they chose to debut with a quartz chronograph because an automatic would have significantly increased the final price, and that could be tricky business for a new microbrand. I respect this bold move. Let's check it out. The case measures 42.5mm in diameter, 50mm from lug to lug, and 12.2mm in height. The entire case is made of stainless steel with a black DLC coating. The 12.2mm case height includes the slightly domed sapphire crystal that comes with two layers of AR coating on the underside. It has a stealthy and tactical appearance, but also manages to show off its hand-ground and polished bevels on the lugs. The lugs are thin and dramatically curved down towards the wrist, extending slightly beyond the height of the case. The crown and pushers are also black. The side crown has an almost traditional flieger-style conical taper and is easy to grip and operate. The bezel is comfortable to grip and operate and has a black aluminum insert. Some might be disappointed at the lack of any loomed elements on the bezel, and I think that at least a loom triangle at 12 o'clock would have been useful. But my main complaint here, and probably the only complaint for this watch in general, is the very light bezel action. The 120 click bidirectional bezel has a loud tactile click, but it feels light and has about 1/3 of a click worth of backplay. Flipping it over, there's a solid screw-down case back that is also DLC coated in black. The crown does not screw into the case, but the watch is rated for up to 100 meters of water resistance, which I think is pretty impressive. They achieved this with a triple lock seal for their push-pull crown. The dial on this watch defines it, and hopefully also sets a standard for Vandaag watches to come. They're going to have a tough time living up to the clean design and incredible finishing seen here. To begin, there's a very simple outer minute and seconds ring. Each increment of 5 is marked with loomed hemispherical indices. The finishing on the printing and loom is perfect. Moving inward, you have Arabic hour numerals that are in a font similar to that used by Zinn and Guino. I'm not sure where this font originated, but it seems to be very popular among aviation watches. These numerals are loomed and the printing is excellent. This watch has a 2-register layout with a running second subdial at the 9 o'clock position and an elapsed minute subdial at the 3 o'clock position. These subdials make use of a wide concentric ring pattern in the center and a narrow ring pattern on their marker track. This plays with light beautifully and almost looks shiny and metallic against the matte dial. These subdials are perfectly proportioned and don't eat into any hour markers like some chronographs do. There is a circular date window neatly placed at the 6 o'clock position, replacing the 6 o'clock hour marker completely. Great choice, and I love the overall symmetry of this dial layout because of this. The date wheel is a bright red with white text, and this is the only accent of color on the monochromatic dial. This is another excellent choice, and it gives this otherwise timid dial a splash of character. Let's look at the hands. This is another area in which Vandaag really went above and beyond in the finishing and quality control. All the hands, including those on the subdial, are painted white. The hour and minute hands are generously filled with loom, and the seconds hand has a loom tip element. The proportions of all the hands are just perfect, and the finishing is really beyond what you would expect from a $350 watch. The minute hand and hour hand stops just a fraction of a millimeter before the hour numerals and minute track respectively. The seconds hand reaches over the seconds track, and the entire layout makes for a perfectly clean, legible experience. The finishing on all the hands is exceptional, without any uneven paint surfaces or blemishes. In terms of overall quality control, I'd say that this watch can hold its ground against many watches upwards of $1,500. Excellent job here, and Vandaag have earned my respect for this. The loom on this watch is just fantastic. I wasn't expecting loom this good on a $350 watch, quartz or otherwise. This is brighter than most watches I review, and it retains its brightness well through the night. Vandaag is using Luminova SG2200 by Nemoto & Co., a Japanese loom manufacturer. I hadn't heard of this brand before, but Nemoto is one of the pioneers of the loom industry with a history dating back to 1941. The Swiss Super Luminova and Seiko Lumibright that we're all familiar with originally were based upon pigments created by Nemoto & Co. back in 1993. So yeah, this watch is guaranteed to impress even the most hardcore of loom junkies. The Schallmauer uses a Miyota 6S21 quartz chronograph movement. This appears to be a reasonable choice in terms of quartz movements. The chronograph pusher buttons have a sturdy and tactile click. There is a date complication, and the crown operating experience is very stable. For a $350 chronograph watch, the choices are limited, but I would take this movement over a Seagull ST19 without hesitation. My only issue here is in the movement's integration into the case. The crown has 3 positions, and the way it is currently placed, to pull into the second position requires very little effort and is close to the pushed in position, so sometimes you end up leaving the crown in position 2 instead of pushing it all the way. This 42.5mm diameter, 50mm lug-to-lug width and 12.2mm case is at the furthest I'll go with a watch case for my 6¼ inch wrist. I usually avoid watches larger than 50mm from lug to lug. But this watch wears surprisingly small, and I think it has something to do with how the lugs extend slightly beyond the height of the case back and almost wrap around my wrist. There is some clever design at play here, and I don't feel like this is too large for my wrist at all. The 12.2mm height and the almost flat case back do a great job at helping the watch stay low on the wrist. In my opinion, this always helps reduce the perceived size of a watch, but this height is mostly possible because of the quartz movement inside. I wore this watch for about a week and it was a pleasure to wear. Even after this review is complete, this watch will definitely be in rotation for the foreseeable future. I was sent the Horween leather strap as well as a 2-piece NATO. The NATO is a bit stiff, but I like it. However, the Horween leather is the one I would get. It takes a day or two to break in, but the finish is great and it's really comfortable. So to wrap things up, I really like this watch. I can't recall previously owning an entirely blacked out watch, so this was quite exciting, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I was initially leaning more towards the Blue Horizon model, because well, I love blue, but I'm glad I listened to Vandaag and got the black instead. Hopefully by now you've gotten a sense of the high quality of finishing and the beautiful design that the Schallmauer has to offer. But it's no secret that some of you will still be on the fence because of the big quartz-shaped elephant in the room. If this watch had a slightly heavier bezel and a Valjoux 7750 or equivalent movement inside, I would see this watch doing exceptionally well at the $1,300 to $1,400 price range. Because the rest is there: build quality, comfort, exceptional design and impeccable finishing. I only say that because I know there will be folks out there that refuse to buy a quartz watch, and at many points of my collecting journey I've done the same. But for those that don't mind a quartz watch, hopefully that will give you a sense of the type of watch you're getting in the Schallmauer. To conclude, I'd like to reiterate, the design and finishing on the Schallmauer is king, and I hope Vandaag is here to stay, because they know how to make a great looking watch, and if they add some automatics to their lineup and continue the same level of finishing, they're going to become very popular. But for an affordable debut piece, they've clearly got my attention. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to read the full review in the link below.